features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good morning, and welcome once again to a very cloudy sunrise safari. Those are some wildebeest. There are oxpeckers' alarm calling in the background, and perhaps the offing of a leopard. This is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Wildebeest is now wandering gently across the plains of the quarantine, not quite as extensive as the plains of the Mara, which we are shortly to be exploring, but still, they have their own particular charm. There are, I'm not sure how many of them, quite a few. I'm probably sitting in the wrong place to count them, so perhaps you'd like to do that and then tell us how many there are. Hashtag Safari Live is the best and indeed, well, not quite only, but just about only way to get hold of us. My name is James Henry, in case you were wondering. I will now smile for you as the strap comes up. There we are. David is on camera today, which is marvellous, of course. And then on the other vehicle we have Byron South Sirao, hopefully not sort of giving in to the criminal nature of the place from which he comes. He is being filmed by Senzor, freshly recovered from some tick bite fever, and Jamie Patterson will be wandering about on foot, filmed by Fergus. That is the team for the day, and we are going to have another look at these wildebeest and their friends the Impala. And I must confess that I think that the Impala have been slightly less than enthusiastic this year about their rut. There's been a little bit of shouting and wassailing about the place, and the odd conflict over ladies, but there really hasn't been quite the same roaring and snorting that I'm used to, and I'm not sure why that should be the case. Again, we could probably blame some sort of environmental conditions. There has been some rutting, but nothing particularly amazing. I'm going to count the wildebeest now, because I've turned around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I think about 27 of them. Oh, David, over here, quickly. There's one trying to show dominance over the other. These two little ones. That's what we say whenever we see a male mounting another male. And he's also obviously got an itchy neck. They are the most astonishing looking creatures, aren't they? Especially as they have beards from so young. One of them has a cough. Well, Abigail, you're in Canada, and where I imagine you must be quite relieved with the onset of spring, as we have become, well, certainly not unrelieved with the onset of autumn. And you say, can wildebeest become aggressive? Abigail, any animal can become aggressive if you irritate it sufficiently. And there was a rather nasty story the other day of a chap being killed by a wildebeest on a farm. It was a sort of game farm, and he was killed, I think, in front of his child. It was a dreadful story. And the reason that happened, we think, was that he took a chance with the wildebeest. He didn't think that the wildebeest was going to react in an aggressive fashion, because they certainly don't out here by default. But the point is that if you threaten an animal sufficiently, even an animal as seemingly docile as a wildebeest, well, it's got those horns for a reason. It's evolved them for a reason, and that is to defend itself. And so any animal, if cornered, and pressured sufficiently will become aggressive. Anything from an elephant right down to the humble bushveld gerbil. Even a bushveld gerbil will eventually turn and attack you. Probably less effectively than a wildebeest might, but if you corner it, it will go for you. Same as an insect. I mean, if you grab an insect and it feels like it cannot escape, it is going to try and bite you. So anything, including a human being, you know that a human being can be tremendously aggressive if cornered. But by default, Abigail, out here, you can walk past these chaps and they'll just move away from you. If they are not cornered, they are not animals that you have to be worried about. They would certainly not be on top of the list of potentially dangerous foes in the wilderness. That's very artistic, David.
Oh, thank you, James.
Yes, I like the dead tree in the background there. I see your leaf has rekindled your creative spirit.
Indeed.
Now my plan this morning, everyone, is to head off down to the... We're just going to do a quick loop around Quarantine, see if we can't pick up on some Shongalai tracks. Jamie had her around here for much of the afternoon yesterday, and then I think I'm going to head down south to where we had Shadow's cub yesterday. Maybe Mum's back. Maybe they've moved the cub to a kill somewhere. That would be wonderful to see. I managed to delete every single photograph and video clip I took of that beautiful leopard cub yesterday, and so I was very, very, very cross yesterday evening, but I'm now not cross anymore. To show you how uncross I am, we're going to head across to Jamie Patterson and find out what her plans on foot for the morning shall be.
A very good morning to all of you and welcome on the Sinrise Safari. My name is Jamie and this morning Fergus is on camera with me once again. Ferg, you doing all the walks now?
Exactly.
All the walks.
Training.
Lots of training. My plans are very similar to James's. I'm also doing a circuit around Quarantine, and that's because it took forever to get light this morning. I guess thanks to the cloud cover that is blanketing the skies. I think it's going to be a nice muggy warm morning out here, and my plans are to go and search for little Shongile. That is what I want to do. Last time I saw her, she was heading straight towards Treehouse Dam, and so we are going to do something very, very similar. Now, for those of you for whom this is the first bushwalk that you have experienced, my goodness me, are you in for a treat. Because the wonderful thing about being on a bushwalk, of course, is that it provides you with the most wonderful opportunity to really have a look at the small things, the big things too, sometimes, but the small things, because you're on foot, you are that much more aware of what is going on around you. Of course, not that aware, because I'm busy chatting to you, answering your questions, which of course you are going to send through on #SafariLive on Twitter, which means that we have an extra gentleman who walks with us each and every day, an absolute legend. I would introduce you, but he's run away again. There's a certain inevitability to that. Whenever I mention Herbie, he's vanished. I think he's worried that I'm going to put him on camera again. Herbie's actually quite shy, but in a wonderful way. A very truly gifted guide and wonderful tracker and very, very good friend of ours. And of course, he keeps us safe by walking ahead and making sure that we don't go bumbling into something, especially with Fergus walking backwards like this. Who knows? He could bounce off a buffalo. Although I would hope that I would see that before he did. You never know, though. Chattering away, I might be looking in the opposite direction, and we definitely want to avoid that. Not that we see buffalo anymore, or we hardly ever see buffalo. They're around, most of them are not on Djuma. So I hope you're all excited to go on a walk. I want to go. The first thing I want to do is go and check where Shongile was hunting that bush baby last night. And the reason that I want to do that is because she was hunting that bush baby just as it was getting dark, which means that they sleep somewhere around there. And I want to go and see if we can find their sleeping spot. Shame. Poor little bush baby must have had a very rough night. Somewhat traumatizing. Although its jumping ability was absolutely superb. It kept jumping. It was something that we couldn't get on camera, but it kept jumping. We'd jump to one tree, Shongile would run to that tree, jump back to the tree it was on. She'd run back there. And it must have done that about 6 or 7 times. So it did have something of a traumatizing evening. And I have to wonder how it's feeling this morning. I think we should go and find out. So that's what my plans are. As for Shongile, well, the question is whether or not she's actually gone down south, or if she's still somewhere around, probably terrorizing terrapins in or around Treehouse Dam. That seems to be her standard pattern. And poor little Shongile yesterday, she was trying to be... Are you enjoying the monkey pods there? Well, poor little Shongile had a day where absolutely everything spotted her. Speaking of spotted things, James has already found one.
Well, it's not so much spotted as it is tiled. That is a giraffe. If you were unclear as to what it was, it is a giraffe. And we know that because it's got a long neck, you see, and long legs and a tail. That is a very effective fly swatter. There we are. Marvellous. I'm obviously being slightly facetious. It's obviously a giraffe. And this bull's been hanging around here for the last little while as very sort of confiding and without friends for some reason. I'm not sure why he should have no friends. He's got an oxpecker for friends. David, would you consider an oxpecker your friend?
Absolutely.
You would?
Yes.
Oh. Well, that's very nice of you. I would consider an oxpecker a fairly poor friend, I feel. Especially if it ate out the open wounds that I had on my body. Anyway, there they are. There are the oxpeckers. And they are feeding on some ticks now. I think I'd prefer to be eating the ticks, yes, with the one on the right there. Certainly less chance of being hit by a missile. I often wonder whether it's a good thing to be an oxpecker or not, whether it is a blessing to have such a ready source of food, transport, and it's kind of endless supply basically, because the ticks never seem to stop. But at the end of the day, you are eating ticks. He's a particularly large fellow, that. I'd put him at about, I don't know, 4.5 meters maybe. That's very tall for a giraffe. He is certainly not the James Hendry of giraffes. He's much more the Brent Leo Smith of giraffes. And contemplating life as they do. And I often think that they are, when they're standing looking like this, I think there's quite a lot going through their minds. Of course, their inability to deliver Shakespearean soliloquies gives the impression that perhaps they're just standing there doing nothing. But I think he's observing the wilderness. He may even be having conversations with other giraffe around the place through the medium of infrasound, which is how they talk quite often, we think. And he's not a young fellow. I'd say he's pretty much in his prime, but he does still have that eye, doesn't he, David? Yes. Let's see if he decides to go and have some apple leaf for breakfast. An apple leaf a day, you know what they say, David? Keeps the itches away. He's scratching his head, clearly. Not quite as adept at bringing his back hoof round as that Wildebeest was. Siberia Zumi, you've asked a question that sounds rather more like a statement than a question. You've said, this giraffe has a number of scratches on it. Yes, it does indeed have a number of scratches. He's a fellow, I don't think he's that old. He's probably, if they have a potential lifespan of between, I don't know, say, up to 20 years in this area, I'd put him at about 14 or so. So not ancient, but he bears a few scars associated with life out here in the wilderness. But he's also, if you look at his skin condition, it's really pretty good. And his skin condition, it doesn't carry that sort of filarial parasite. And that means that he's really not that old. They all eventually get patches where the hair has been eaten off. And that is not the case with this chap. Right, we're going to leave him to wander off into the morning. Byron Serrao has got something apparently quite interesting to show you.
Well, I think they're very interesting, James. It's a beautiful elephant bull. So from your very tall giraffe to this wonderful Ellie bull, but he seems to be browsing at the moment. He's feeding on the leaves off the trees, and he was stretching. Let's see if he does it again for us. There you can actually see that branch just to the right of his tusks. He broke it off, he pulled it down from that tree above him. I think he's just heard us now. It's quite a distance away from us. Happily feeding. He broke a marula branch. I do enjoy seeing these large elephant bulls wandering around. I was hoping he'd wander over this way, but yes, we haven't actually said good morning yet, have we? Let's see, the other guys have been showing you so much already. Morning, my name is Byron, and Senzo is on camera with me this morning. Completely forgot about that. We did the pre-show drive. Anyway, we have an elephant bull. See, these sometimes these drives start blurring into one. We forget when we've said hello and when we haven't. Hope all of you are having a wonderful day. If you're finishing up your day, if you're in the western side of the continent, or if you're just starting your day like we are. A lot of South Africans all travelled away for the long weekend over Easter, or some of them might still even be on holiday. Hope you're having a great time. Chris, no, those wrinkles don't necessarily indicate... Look at that elephant shaking that branch, trying to break it. That was interesting. So, Chris, no, the wrinkles don't indicate age or weight loss necessarily. Elephant hide is always wrinkled. Apparently, it does contain a lot of moisture. I've never touched an elephant, but from my understanding, especially after they've wallowed or splashed water over themselves, they actually trap a lot of moisture within those wrinkles, and that helps keep them cool too, to an extent. But it's not a sign that they're very old if you see a wrinkled elephant like this. I'm sure, eventually, yes, it might have a few more wrinkles. But it's not to say that only the older elephant are wrinkled and not the younger ones. All elephant hide looks rather similar. Buttons, cockatoo, yes. Generally, all the African elephant do show that spinal protrusion, that little hump on the back. It is quite prominent with the elephant, or the African elephant at least. I do think that it is a little bit more prominent on the males, if I'm not mistaken. But you will see it on females too. This looks like a really nice bull. Quite a large bull. You can see he's been dust bathing too, thrown a lot of dust and sand on his back. And they do that to protect their skin from all the little fleas or flies that might be sitting on them. That dust does help for that. Now, Laurie, you might be thinking in terms of ruminants, and ruminants having different stomach chambers, and you've asked how many stomach chambers elephants have. So elephants are not ruminants at all. They've only got a single stomach, and they do not have a very efficient digestive system. And that's why if you see elephant dung, and I'll see if I can find some fresh dung for you during the course of the drive, but it's very, very coarse. There's a lot of plant material, grass, branches, bark. They don't digest a lot of their food. They only absorb about 20% of the nutrients from all the food that they eat. So their digestive system and stomach is completely different to that of a ruminant. A ruminant, which has a 4-chambered stomach, basically breaks down the food as much as possible. It's a very efficient digestive system, and they'll get all the nutrients out of the food, or as much as possible. That's why when you look at all the antelope species, their dung are little dark black pellets, because they have completely been broken down. I'm just going to move forward slightly. I wonder if we might have a better view of this big elephant's face. Hold on a second. Let me just see if I can't get a little gap through here, through the trees. Where's he gone? Lexi, that flapping of the ears that we can see from that elephant, where's he gone? Can you still see him? Sorry, Lexi, I'll get your question now. He's hiding behind those branches there. Let me go back again. Sorry, everyone, that didn't work out. There are too many trees around here. We can't see him from this angle. Lexi, so that flapping of the ears is not necessarily to make himself look bigger. It's actually to cool himself down, and I'll explain how that works now. Let's just see if we can get another proper view of him. He's just hiding through the trees there. I think this is our best spot, Senzo. So Lexi, what they do is there's actually a number of veins that run through those large ears, and so they obviously contain a lot of blood. So what happens is, by them flapping their ears like that, it cools the blood down slightly, not by much, but it does cool the blood down, and it takes between 7 and 9 minutes for that blood to circulate through the body. So that helps kind of regulate the temperature to an extent. It does help the elephant stay a bit cooler. So that flapping of the ears that we can see there now is purely that male just cooling himself down a bit. It is very cool this morning, but he's probably enjoying this cool weather while he feeds on those marula branches. You can see he's actually got a branch in his mouth there now, feeding on the bark. There's a lot of nutrients in the bark, and that's why elephants enjoy feeding on bark from trees. So Lexi, that's the main reason why that elephant is flapping his ears now. However, if he did feel threatened, elephants do lift their heads, they raise their heads, and they do open their ears, and that is to make themselves look bigger. So you're right there, they do that, but that is if they feel threatened, and if they're trying to get you to move away, perhaps. They give a lot of warning signs. That's why I love elephants so much, is because you generally can read them quite well. And they do let you know if they're unhappy, if they don't want you close by. Lexi, in terms of the senses, elephants' sense of smell is very, very good. Their sense of hearing is good. Their eyesight is not as good, but it's not bad. Their eyesight is pretty good. Even for an animal with such small eyes, I suppose, but an elephant could definitely see me moving from about 100 meters away or so easily. Their eyesight is not bad at all, but they rely a lot more on their other senses. I mean, their sense of smell is phenomenal. No, Andy. I think that's only in Disney movies. Elephants aren't afraid of mice, from what I've seen. No, not at all. I've never ever seen an elephant react to a mouse. So I think it's purely Disney movies. It's so nice to be able to watch a big bull just standing feeding like this. So Andy, that question goes in line with look at he's trying to. It's amazing to see him shake his head to break the branch like that. So Andy, getting back to your question, that goes in line with why those elephants flap their ears to cool themselves down. Their ears are thin so that those veins are very exposed to the air or to the wind that they create when they flap their ears. So that is why those thin ears help them to cool down. Those veins are exposed, the blood is then cooled a lot easier, and that is why those ears are so thin. I'm going to see if we can get a better view of this elephant, but while I do that, let's have a look at James's sunrise that he has found.
Well, I'd love to claim it as my own sunrise, but I cannot. Unfortunately, I did not create it. It is a rather beautiful sunrise, and the sun is coming up through a little gap in the clouds, creating what can only be described as a David. What is the cliche we use on an almost daily basis? There we go, post-apocalyptic. Well done. Post-apocalyptic sort of movement of the clouds there. And of course the point of stopping is not only so that we might observe the sun, it is so that we might listen, free of the revving of Rusty's engine, to the potential alarm calls of birds and impala, bushveld gerbils, grasshoppers, that sort of thing that might be shouting at leopards. I have found no sign of Shongalai. I was giving a very perfunctory look around quarantine for her, and so now we are heading south down Zoe's road in the hopefully to find Shadow and her cub. So we're watching the road very carefully for tracks and just seeing if we can't find some sign. It's very pretty, David. Many layers of clouds. It's not particularly cold this morning. It was about apparently 20 degrees Celsius, which is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not too bad. I only have one jersey on. David has one jersey, David? One jersey?
Correct.
It's quite a gangster jersey, David. It's got a hood on it. David, of course, is from Johannesburg, so he may well have been involved in some criminal activities at some stage of his life. Now, Little Owl, you're obviously a new viewer, and of course I should have possibly have explained this even before you asked me, so I'm sorry if there's some confusion. You say, who is Shadow? Well, indeed, who is Shadow? Shadow is a female leopard. She is probably 10 years old now. I forget when her birthday is, but she turns 10 this year. She has just produced a little cub about 4 months ago. She is either the unluckiest leopard in the Sabi Sand, or she's the worst mother, one of the two. She has failed in those 10 years to raise a cub to independence, and there's some debate over why that is the case. Now, she's one of our very favourite characters. We just don't see her as often as we might, because she's not always on this reserve. She often spends time to the south of where we are, and you are a new viewer, so I will just quickly explain that we cannot just drive anywhere because humans are more territorial than lions and leopards. We're unable to just drive willy-nilly around the place. We have to be mindful of the boundaries that humans have set, so the animals are free to come and go as they please, but we have to stay on our patch, if you like, and Shadow's patch just extends a lot further than ours does, and so she goes way down to the south and then off to the west, and so we don't see her very often. We have an enormously wonderful relationship with her and enjoy spending time with her. So hopefully we will have some time with her very shortly. In the meantime, Byron has found an antelope that is very good at the high jump, probably unlike Byron.
It's just disappeared behind the bush, James. Let me see if I can find it. But it is indeed very good at high jump. Kudu, nice group of kudu here. Some females, but I'd like to show you this beautiful. Let's see, he's just behind this bush. Very interested in these females. These females have been running around trying to get away from this male. Let me try roll forward a little bit more. One of my favorite antelope, but this is a beautiful male. But he keeps dodging in and out of the bush. The kudu like these thick areas. There he is. Oh, have a look here. It looks like he might try and mate with her. Let's see. It could be interesting. He's doing that Flemen behavior that we know about. So he's basically testing the urine of the female. And they've got something known as a Jacobson's organ at the back of their palate. So they taste that urine, they push it on the back of their palate, and that allows them to tell whether or not those females are actually in estrus and if it's worth mating. So that's what this male kudu is doing at the moment. Look how thick his neck is. This is a really great specimen. Very muscular neck. Obviously it has to be quite muscular to carry those heavy horns around. You see he's put some mud on those horns. Now they do that, and they do this horn thrashing all for dominance. So he wants to make his horns look a lot thicker, a lot bigger. That's one of the theories why they thrash their horns in the mud like that. Also make them a bit stronger if they are potentially going to fight against other males. Thick mud might make them a bit heavier. And then the horn thrashing, also dominance display. I think he's trying to display a little bit for these females. Bobby, yes, you can definitely determine the kudu's age by length of the horns. Again, it's always difficult to age these animals. I would say this kudu is probably around 10 or 12 years old. And the kudu, the male kudu, actually live, well, they live for a little less than the females. The females live longer, so the females will live to about, I think it's 14 or 16, and male kudu apparently 12 or 13. They don't live as long, and I think it's maybe got to do with competition. We don't really know why the male kudu don't live as long as the females. Are Laura Moore? No, there isn't a lot of blood supply into the horns. So those horns are basically keratin or keratin and hair. So very similar to what our fingernails are made up of. They do grow throughout their lifetime. You'll see some of the older kudu especially, they get these very prominent white tips to the horn, and hasn't quite got the white tip just yet, but that is usually a sign of age. But those horns at the base there will be bone-like protrusions slightly come off the skull, and then and that obviously has blood supply. But then the actual sheath of the horn growing up, there's no blood supply further up at all. But like I say, at the base and the beginning of the horn, there will definitely be some blood, because I've seen when these animals break their horns, if they do get into a fight, if they break the horn off lower down, you'll see there will be a bit of blood around those horns, closer to the skull. Jennifer, you say you love these huge spiral horns. So do I. I always explain them to, or describe them to guests as corkscrews. They do look like corkscrews. And it's amazing how these kudu, these big males, are still able to move through the bush with ease, through the thick bush with those big horns. All they do is they put their heads back, tilt their heads back, they put the horns straight down their back, and they're able to run through the thicket very, very easily. That's a nice view of him. No, Brittany, they don't sharpen their horns. There's no need. Those horns grow naturally. They grow to a sharpened point like that. But, I suppose with a bit of the horn thrashing they might do around the bushes, it might cause a bit of a sharpened edge, but it grows naturally like that, Brittany. They don't do it intentionally. I'm just going to try and move forward a little bit again. Enjoying browsing on these trees at the moment. Beautiful morning, still a very cool temperature, still a lot of clouds around. But it is a very, very pleasant morning. I'm going to leave these kudu. So from these beautiful high jumpers, Jamie has got an animal that I don't think is going to win any races anytime soon.
No races, and certainly not the high jump, although the idea of a jumping snail is actually relatively amusing. We do indeed have probably one of the slowest creatures that we could see on Djuma, in the form of a relatively small snail. I don't think this is a giant land snail. Obviously, it could be a very small giant land snail, but I don't think that it is. I think this is a different species. There's something about the colour of it and the colour of its shell, and the shape of its shell, actually, come to think of it, that to me does not put me in mind of a giant land snail. I think this is a different snail. As to which different snail, it's difficult to say exactly. Last year, Steph and myself kept ourselves entertained by trying to figure out which particular species of snail it was that we were seeing everywhere. Eventually discovered that it was an exotic species. I'm wondering if this is not the same. And it's interesting how you get population, I wouldn't call it a population explosion per se, but you get different species of snail appearing in different years. So I have not seen one of those snails that Steph and myself spent a very long time trying to identify. This one, I don't think you're a land snail. I wonder if you're an exotic. Are you an exotic? Are you exotic? No answer. Can I see your papers, please? Oh, Wonderful. Hannah, you say that this is your first bushwalk. Allow me to, hold on a second, respond to you properly. Hannah, I'm thrilled to hear that this is your first bushwalk and that you're very, very excited. I would love to actually physically take you on a bushwalk, but this is the next best thing. And as I said earlier, it does give us a really lovely opportunity to get down and dirty, so to speak, with the smaller things that we see out here. And the wonderful thing, of course, is that the camera can bring you detail that is truly extraordinary, like the snail and the way that it moves across the ground and leaves a relatively non-existent slime trail. What always fascinates me about them, and it used to as a child as well, is those amazing, amazing extensions with the eye on the end of them. I didn't touch them. It was just the presence of my fingers that sent them retracting in. And I'd love to know about the muscular structure within those extensions on the top of its head, with its eyes on the end. Imagine if we could do that, and stick our eyes right out and then pull them back in. It's really weird. The more you think about it, the weirder it is. Here he goes. And welcome to Lightning Guy. It's lovely to have you, Lightning Guy. I should probably sit up now, although I have to say this is a very comfortable position I found myself on the ground. Lightning Guy, you want to know if snails could basically work like hermit crabs, that they could change shells at will. And the answer is no. They are very much attached to their shells, not just in an emotional sense, but in a physical sense as well. And the way that the shell is produced, hermit crabs move from shell to shell without actually making the shell itself. So they will go and steal an empty shell, or sort of usurp an empty shell, and move in there. Whereas for snails, they produce their own shell through excreting from their epidermis inside. They secrete a concentration of proteins and polysaccharides that basically form crystals that then form the shape of the shell itself. And there's all kinds of studies, if you are interested in that sort of thing, or if you're mathematically inclined, there's all sorts of studies that have been done and research that's been done about the conditions that make for the production of a shell, what the snail eats, what the shape of the snail is, and there's all sorts of ratios. Obviously there's the famous, what's it called, that spiral? the famous spiral, you know what I mean. Obviously there's that to it, but there's ratios of the aperture, the opening of the shell, the length of the shell and the spiral, the tightness of the coils. It's fascinating if you're interested in reading up on that sort of thing. It's a little complex, and I have to confess to not fully understanding it myself. But it is a true magic piece of work of nature. Now remember that its body is sort of extended into that shell and attached to the inside. And Megan, you say that there's something pulsing inside its shell. Well, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that that is the heartbeat of the snail. And I wish I had a torch with me, because we could actually shine it through. Next time I must remember to do that, next time I see a snail. We could shine it through and have a look at the anatomy and the structure of this particular snail. So that pulse will be its heartbeat. Now I'm really curious to know how fast a snail's heart beats, because I've got no idea. Andy, watching our snail racing away from us at the speed of not quite light, you want to know if there's a difference between a snail and a slug apart from the presence of the shell. To the best of my knowledge, no. I could be incorrect on that. I mean, as far as I know, slugs are basically just shell-less snails. Now, I don't think there's much in the way of a difference. You might find, I guess, that there's a slight difference. There'll be a chemical difference in the makeup of their skin, because the skin is the outside layer is what produces the substances to create a shell. So I guess if they don't have shells, then there must be a situation where those chemicals are different and they don't produce them. But it's a good question. I can't think of any other major difference. They're kind of mesmerizing in a way. And Viva la Void, you want to know what sort of predators snails will face here? Quite a few. Birds, lots of different bird species will get snails, and one that is this small, it could even be something like a roller. A lilac-breasted roller would be large enough to actually attack the snail and eat away at its very sensitive inside of its body. Snails are very good sources of protein. Human beings eat snails out here. I don't think it's all that common anymore, and I certainly can't say that I look at this particular snail and think, oh, yum, breakfast. But people do eat snails, and they'll feed off. Giant land snails would have been a sort of a food supplement, protein supplement for people living out here. Leopards will eat them, lions will eat them, small cats will eat them, mongoose will eat them. Basically, they're on the menu for quite a few things. And you have to kind of feel sorry for them because there's certainly no escaping. I mean, as much as it might want to, the snail is probably not capable of producing a turn of speed that would allow it to escape from pretty much anything out here. Fergus, you know what I've just realized? Remember that tick that I said was crawling towards me? Yeah. I've squashed him, or it's somewhere on me. So the tick had the last laugh after all. I was looking at it earlier while you were watching that kudu. I was looking at it earlier and I was saying, ha, I'm onto you, you can't get onto me. But now it's gone. Oh well. As is our snail, nearly, wandering off. It is the Fibonacci spiral. Thank you very much, Ryan. That is exactly what I was referring to. It's one of those things where your brain goes blank on something that you've known all your life, or you feel like you've known all your life. The magic ratio and the Fibonacci spiral. Mathematically, seriously, if you're interested in that sort of thing, you should have a look. If you're interested in biology and mathematics, you should have a look at some of the articles on the production of snail shells and the ratios of everything, because it's utterly fascinating. Oh, I've got some really good news for you that I forgot about earlier. Shongile killed a scrub hare last night. Aubrey saw her kill a scrub hare. So how exciting is that? She is slowly but surely, and Herbie and I were just talking about it now. The fact that she's getting things like scrub hares is a really very, very good sign, because it means that she probably could, but she can't really only live on terrapins. So she's expanding her skills and probably gaining in confidence, because I don't think that can actually be underestimated. Gaining in confidence in terms of her hunting abilities. Either way, she caught a scrub hare, and that's very exciting. I suspect she's in Little Gowrie, but we're going to go and double check anyway. So she was on very close to the southern boundary when Aubrey saw her last night. But I'm excited for her. It's funny because we spoke about it last night, I think. Talked about the fact that she needs to eat a scrub hare. I'm trying to work out what tracks these are. That's interesting. They look like civet tracks, except they've got very prominent claws. I know there's a civet that walks along this road every night. I guess it must be a civet, but they just look odd. It doesn't look right. It actually looks like a little miniature hyena with those half-moon-shaped toes. Herbie! Oh, Herbie's vanished. I need his expert tracking opinion. I guess it must be a civet. Chances of it being an aardwolf. No, that's not possible. It is possible. We do get aardwolf in this area. We've never seen one, except in the Manuletti. An aardwolf is the curious member of the hyena family. The somewhat almost black sheep of the family. It eats insects only, which is unusual, of course, and one of the things that's made biologists debate whether or not it does actually belong in the hyena family. It must be a civet. It's a very odd-shaped civet, though. Civet tracks are usually perfect. Little toes, perfect circles. Maybe this one had a limp. His back foot doesn't look right either. I'm going to have to track down Herbie. I want his opinion on this peculiar track. When in doubt, with something like this, it's not the exceptional. When in doubt, it's something relatively obvious. It's the obvious answer. We have the same approach with birds. Generally speaking, you're not seeing an unusual bird. I'm going to go and catch up with Herbie and find out what he feels about these tracks. So while I do that, let's head across to James and find out what he has planned for your morning.
I have planned now to go to Treehouse Dam because we did a walk through the area where we saw the little cub yesterday, found nothing. I'm pretty sure that Shadow has either taken her deeper into that drainage line. Excuse me. It is early in the morning. Taken her deeper into the drainage line, or she's killed somewhere not too far away and perhaps taken the cub there. So we'll have a scratch around this area and see if we don't come up with something. Our next port of call will be Treehouse Dam, and we will go via Shibamu Road because we know that Shongalai and Horsana also like to spend some time on Shibamu Road at the Pans, so it's a good opportunity to go and test there. I have got a puncture. I think we might have to sort that out at some stage. Certainly a tyre that is getting flat. There is Herbert over there. We can see Herbert and Jamie and obviously Fergus. There they are in the distance. Right, apparently we're going to go across to Byron now and find out what's happening with him.
Did I hear that correctly, James? Do you have a puncture? Oh dear. James, we are just driving around. We haven't seen anything yet. Anything else? We haven't found anything yet. But remember last night, I actually said to everyone, I said, Shungile, and just to find grab hair or something. I think that will be essential. So I'm hoping that, Jamie said she saw the tracks grab hair. Possibly the remains, which is great. So I'm very happy about that. That is exciting, and that's a lot better for a young leopard. Grab hair. Sorry, just our aerial is just falling over slightly. Just need to fix it, otherwise we'll lose signal. Just put it a bit higher since let's see, that should be okay. Sorry everyone, we're just consulting detective. Shungile, not necessarily. I don't think she would be in danger of other leopards. Because she's still a young leopard, she hasn't set up a territory for herself. She's still in her mother's territory. Now, usually what happens with young females, the mothers will give up a portion of their territory for the females. So Karula will most likely give up a portion of her territory, and this young Shungile will then take over a section and then extend her territory as much as she possibly can. Because she's still so young, I don't think she's in too much danger just yet, or she's probably not threatened just yet by the leopards. But she does have to be careful if a dominant female came into the area, or if Shungile went in. That's very rude of you. Listen to this. The rutting male impala. Just running off, doing that bellowing that they do. Such a strange sound. Sorry, so as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by that impala, I think at the moment she's okay, but if a dominant leopard comes in, another female comes in, yes, she would probably have to be very careful, because that leopard may see her as a potential threat and move off. I don't think a male would necessarily harm her, and I don't think they would mate with her either. She's still too young. So in terms of actual danger, I think she'd be okay, but she does have to be careful, probably just of another female leopard coming into the area. I'm sorry, I didn't quite copy that name properly. Naturable. Is that what you said? Naturable. Okay, that's interesting. That's a new name. You asked. Sorry, I think the signal bumped in and out there for a second. I will definitely try to find an eagle. I'll keep scanning the trees. Maybe a fish eagle. What I'll do is I'm going to head down towards Chitwa Dam. Hopefully we have signal down there, and then try to see if I can find an eagle for you. It would be nice to see the fish eagles over there. I have no idea where these lions have gone to. We heard all these lions last night. Not sure. Now we know there was that one coalition member and one lioness that had the zebra kill yesterday. So I wonder if the other lions didn't move off down that area. I'm going to head down towards Chitwa. While I do that, let's head back to Jamie, who's still wandering around in the bush.
Wandering around and truly enjoying a very beautiful morning. Our Herbie's just asked me if I can see Shongile's tracks in the sand. And it's one of those mornings with the sort of the cloudy light. Aha, I see one. Haha. I can see one. This is why we always talk about the fact that this light is so very difficult to actually track in, because these are her tracks here. This is her front foot over here, and this is her back foot. Oh, still such tiny feet. Such tiny feet. These are her 4 toes over here, and the back of her pad, and the back foot's over here. Here are the toes. She really does have small feet. Her 2 feet together are basically the length of my hand. Now, we just have to figure out where she went. I'm guessing south, but she might be at Treehouse Dam. And since poor James has a flat tire, we might actually beat him there. So let us continue on. It's an amazing skill, tracking. There's where Herbie circled the tracks, and having an eye for that sort of detail. And that skill is perfected over years and years of work. Hours and hours. And Herbie tells me, and I agree with him and I would not begin to even think about placing myself in the same category as people like Herbie or Rexon in terms of their tracking ability. But Herbie tells me that he needs to practice constantly. He constantly tests himself, constantly trails and follows things, because that's the only way that he can actually stay on top of things. And it's apparently a skill, I suppose, like playing a musical instrument or speaking a language, that becomes very rusty over time if you don't use it, if you don't practice following things like these tracks, especially in light conditions like this. And I still think, I don't know, it's a thought that I've had for a while, and I keep thinking about it. Imagine if we could send people like Herbie or Rexon or Arrhenius up into the mountains to go and track snow leopards. Imagine what we would, if we could habituate them in the same way that we've habituated these leopards. It'd be incredible. Obviously they're going to have a slightly less, they have slightly larger territories, or much larger territories, just in terms of resources. But it would be very, very interesting. I think we'd learn a lot. I think the same applies to jaguars. Perhaps I'm biased, but I don't think so. I think South African trackers are probably the best in the world. Lots of practice. Tourism is a big thing. Finding animals for tourists is a big thing. And through that, we have learned so much about them. Now we just have to find little Shongile. Don't forget to send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, in exactly the same way that Kathleen has sent through her question. Now, Kathleen, you want to know what is the correct way to say Shongile? Shongile. As far as I know, Shongile. The correct way to spell it, the sh sound, is Xongile. I have to check myself now. Apparently my spelling whenever I'm live goes up the spout, like the deep fryer from the other day. Yeah. Herbs, when in doubt, talk about a Shangaan name. Get somebody who speaks the language far better than I do to pronounce it. But he's running away! Herbie! Herbie! He's eager. He wants to find the leopard now. Nobody could ever tell Herbie that he is not dedicated. Herbs, I need a favor. One of the viewers wants to know how to pronounce Shongile. Wait, hold on, I'm coming to you with my microphone. This is Herbie, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
There you go. That is Herbie. He is wonderful. There you go. Shongile.
Shongile. It's X O for
O for orange.
orange. N for Nana. G for
Grape.
grape.
Granny.
I
Indigo.
for indigo. L for Lolo. And I for indigo. Shongile.
Sure. And it's that X is the sure.
Yes, it's X O N G I L I.
Awesome.
And baboons are alarming.
And baboons are alarm calling. Well, we better go. On that note, while I race after our fantastic spelling bee, we better send you across to Byron.
Hang on, everyone. I've just found a cuckoo, which I would love to show you. It's just come off into the bush to the side here. Stay there, stay there. There he is. See him there? There it is. That's a beautiful, great spotted cuckoo. Now, for those of you who haven't seen one of these before, that we do get them all around, but it's wonderful to see it because these cuckoos should have migrated by now, or they're very close to migrating. This looks like it might still be a young one. And what I find really fascinating is how these cuckoos are, so they're called brood parasites. So what happens is the cuckoos, basically they lay their eggs in other birds' nests. And I'll tell you now exactly, each cuckoo species has got a specific bird that they like to parasitize. So these ones would lay their eggs, they're just jumping about, the pied starlings. So some of the starling species. And then what happens is, once these little eggs hatch, the adult starlings then raise these cuckoos. So the adult cuckoos do not have anything to do with their chicks. And what happens then, once they get to a certain age, so I think this one would have hatched this season, so this summer down here, and is now very close to the age where it will migrate north for the winter, for our winter. And I just think it's amazing how these birds know. They've never been raised by their parents. They've been raised by a different species of bird completely, but yet they know they need to migrate north for the winter, and then in the summer they'll return again. Isn't that fascinating? John B. in Colorado, that's another new bird for you, the cuckoo, the great spotted cuckoo. That's great, that's wonderful. So you said you're on 82 now, John B. That's a fairly good list. 83, sorry, you said 83. Yeah, that's great. We need to try to show you some more. Should hopefully get you up to about 150. Some of the little birds are a little bit harder to find and put on camera. Look at that. What's he? Just couldn't. That's why I say I think this is a young cuckoo, because it looks a little bit uneasy still. The way it flies. Usually these cuckoos fly away very quickly. They're hard to spot, and they fly from tree to tree rather quickly, feeding on. These cuckoos feed on a lot of caterpillars, mainly caterpillars, that they'll pick off trees. Maybe certain other insects and even lizards. Now, David, I have no idea if a cuckoo can't find a nest. I've never heard of that, but there's always pied starlings around, put it that way, and there are always other starlings around, so they just somehow manage to find a nest. So they always find a nest. This is a lovely sighting of a great spotted cuckoo. Crystal, you say you love this bird. Yeah, I enjoy the cuckoos, all the cuckoos. I find them fascinating and all very beautiful. Consulting detective, my favorite species of cuckoo, I would have to say, is I think the emerald cuckoo. I've only seen it once before, and that one just flew away. It's alright, Senzo, we had a lovely view of it, I think. Yeah, don't worry, he's just jumping up around that tree now. So the emerald cuckoo is probably my favorite cuckoo. Look at that. Let's have a look at that color there. Beautiful emerald and yellow. It's got a wonderful call. I've seen it once in this area and never seen it again. It's got a wonderful call. That's the sound of the emerald cuckoo. Very, very beautiful call. Beautiful bird. And speaking about beautiful birds, let's head to something that's not so beautiful that I think has managed to change his tire.
Thank you. Yes, Byron, very kind of you to describe me as unbeautiful. I suppose I'd like to take offence at that, but I cannot. It is inescapably true. We have changed our tyre now, and so we are driving relatively straight, and we're now at Treehouse Dam. I will tell you that you've probably seen them since we have, but Jamie and Herbert and Fergus have headed down a road just to the west of where we are now, called Shibamu, or Gun Road, and we are now at Treehouse Dam, wondering if perhaps the object of our desire has not arrived here. But I do not see her. That is not to say she is not here, for the grass is long and the leopards are good at hiding. So I will go to scan the far pans there with my binoculars and see if I can't come up with something, but alas, I cannot. There is much in the way of algae in the pans, and that of course is brought on by the water and the fact that there are so many nutrients in the mud underneath the water, and of course it's from the dung of the countless buffalo, elephants and various other animals that have relieved themselves in the mud over the course of time, and so a tremendously nutrient rich part of the reserve. We've got a question, I think, from Lucy in, I think, is Arkansas as opposed to Arkansas, and you were wondering, Lucy, if there are any crocs in here. There are no crocs in here, we don't think. That's not to say it's impossible for there to be crocs in here, and I well remember the time that we went off to Twin Dams one day, and we were asked exactly the same thing, and as I said, there are no crocs here. A crocodile popped its head out of the water. There could be crocs in here. I'll tell you why it's unlikely. It's not a very deep dam, and also it's kind of out of the way. It's not on the way to anywhere like Twin Dams is, but it's not impossible that a crocodile would come popping along here. And remember, for 2 days, the crocodile that the great namer of animals, Brent Leo Smith, named Vladimir the Impala, was indeed out of the water for 2 days, moving between water holes. So absolutely they can be in a temporary water source like this, probably not permanently, but they'll come and visit. So the message there is that you never ever get into the water, ever, in a place like this where there could be crocodiles. And there's a dreadful story that I tell quite regularly of a chap who still guides to this day in Namibia. And at the reserve where I very first started walking, it happened long before I got there, started working, sorry, there was a dam quite similar size to this, and he drove down to it, and his guest said, "Do you get crocs here?" And he said, "No, we don't get crocs here." And they said, "Well, can we swim in the dam?" And he said, "Yeah, we can swim in the dam, that's no problem. I'll just go and have a quick look, but there are no crocs here. I've never seen one here." That man now has one arm. I won't tell you the details of how he came from that conversation to now having one arm, but you can imagine. And so crocodiles are sneaky, and they are all over the place, just when you least expect them. So you would not find me heading into this water any time soon. Not unless I'd watched it for at least a day. And a crocodile is a very, very sort of cunning person, or cunning animal, and it's also very patient, so they can be under the water for a long time. Now Jamie's just over there, so let's head across to her and find out how her search is going.
We're just over here with a somewhat unpleasant sight, and I do apologize for those of you that are a little bit sensitive to these sorts of things. We obviously are relatively desensitized to sitting and looking at piles of scat. Just to warn you in advance, I'm going to do a little bit of prodding and poking around in this pile of scat, which of course belongs to the little leopardess that we've been tracking. I suspect that she's gone into Little Gowrie, but she's left us with a present in the form of scat that actually tells a very interesting story. Not that we didn't know this already, but if I were to closely examine this, I would come to the conclusion very quickly that this particular leopard has been eating terrapins, which we know, of course, because she is the terror of terrapins. But look at this. It just goes to show exactly how much of the terrapin she's eating. Because that's bits of shell. She's literally consuming the scales of the terrapin. Bits of bone. Can't be very easy on the digestive system. There you go. So that was a terrapin at one point. It is now a pile of leopard scat. There's also all bones and scales. Not actually that much substance to it. Look at this. Look at it. Scale, scale, scale. And bone. That's why she needed to catch something like a scrub hare, and that's why I'm very glad that she did. Because this is hardly nutritious. Oh, I just got a whiff of that. Pungent. Those of you that have been following our live safaris for a while, you know that we collect leopard scat for DNA purposes. So essentially we give it over to an organization called Panthera, and they will eventually produce a very comprehensive study into the genetics and the genetics of the leopards in this area. And one of the tangents that will take us down is paternity in particular of the various leopards of this area. Who's the daddy, quite literally. As it happens, I've got Shongile's scat. I've given in Shongile's scat. It's a very strange way to make money because they pay us. Not that we need paying to do it because it's such an interesting thing. But they do pay us for collecting leopard scat. How bizarre is that? Now, of course, I don't have a leopard scat vial with me, but we do collect the scat. I've handed in Shongile's scat. Laura, you would like to know what it smells like. Rotting meat with a casual side of dog feces. Kind of what it smells like. Gross, actually, is the only way that I can describe it. It smells really, really revolting. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm not going to stick my nose much closer to it to try and give you an exact breakdown of the various smells. It smells like rotting meat, and I suppose with a side of terrapin as well. Right, I'm going to move rapidly on from that thought process. However, Byron's found himself a perfect place to sit and reflect on the morning.
Yeah, I suppose it is a perfect place to sit and think, Jamie. It's a beautiful spot. Beautiful sunrise, sun rays breaking through the clouds. Listen, you might hear hippo. There we go. Now we're at Chitwa Dams. A lot of hippo activity around. You can hear them actually communicating with each other now. See if they call again for us. Now, Natural Bull, you asked earlier if I could find an eagle for you, and I've managed to do that. Straight ahead, you will see a beautiful fish eagle. So I hope you're still watching. There it is. Perched on the tree above the dam. Would be wonderful to see these fish eagles fly down or swoop down and try and catch a fish. That would be really great. I do enjoy sitting at these dams. There's a lot going on here. There's A few Impala around. There are Waterbuck in the clearings. We'll try to show you some of this, but let me just list some of the stuff for now. And then the bird life around here is amazing too. There's lots of Egyptian geese, as we know. A lot of red-billed buffalo weavers. There are little sandpipers. There are the fish eagle, obviously. The blacksmith lapwings. Thomas, I think I did see a woodland kingfisher yesterday. Most of them have left, Thomas, but there are still one or two around. So there are still one or two little woodland kingfishers around. But pretty soon they'll all be gone. Ryan, no, we don't. As far as I know, we don't have any members of the blackbird family. I'm just trying to think now if they are related to any bird. No, but Ryan, no, we don't have any blackbirds in southern Africa. So I'm just thinking. I don't know if they're related to another species. Don't know the blackbird. Is it black? It's nice to be able to sit around these waterholes, as I said, and just scan and see what you can find. Because I think often a lot of animals come down. A lot of animals come down to drink and spend time at these waterholes. You might just be able to see there's some Impala just off to the side over there. There's an Impala I mentioned there, a little bit further right. And then let's see, where are those Waterbuck that I saw earlier? Here we go. Another two Impala rams, bachelor herd, all the males. And the Waterbuck is walking across the clearing at the moment. I'll head up and show you. It's just behind that tall tree, Senzo. You might be able to see it. It's coming out into the open. There we go. A big Waterbuck bull. I haven't seen the big crocodiles lately. I think also with it's been quite hot, and I'm not sure I don't know where they've moved off to. They could still be in this dam somewhere, and I still wouldn't necessarily go and swim. But I haven't seen those big crocodiles for quite some time. We used to see at least 2 or 3 crocodiles in here. Scanning the banks, because I'm hoping in winter what may happen is, because the temperature is so much cooler, these crocodiles and a lot of these animals will bask on the banks. The hippo as well as the crocodiles will come in, bask on the banks, warm up during the day, and return or move in and out of the water quite a lot. But they generally tend to bask on the banks a lot in winter. I don't see any of these crocodiles at the moment. Scanning very carefully, but no, I can't see any of them. I'm going to sit here for a few more minutes and just see what else we can find, or if anything comes down to the dam. Let's head back to James and find out if he's got any more punctures.
we've got water. We're at twin dams at the moment, and there is a squirrel going crazy. So we're just going to quickly drive onto the dam wall, and look, it's in that big balanites tree, I think, the squirrel. Now squirrels, of course, will alarm call at just about anything. I've come to the conclusion that when they have a domestic argument, they start alarm calling at each other. But they will also, of course, alarm call at leopards, or lions, or snakes, eagles. Squirrels in here. In fact, there are squirrels everywhere alarm calling. One in that tree there. One off to the left-hand side of where we are now. Where is it looking? Straight towards us. Deeply dissatisfied with life. We'll just keep looking around here, everybody. Now, Sibusiso, you want to know if these squirrels have got different kinds of alarms. I'm assuming you're meaning for different animals. So would they alarm call differently for a leopard as opposed to an eagle or a python? Yes, they probably do. Do I know the difference? No, I don't. Does anybody know the difference? There might be a few researchers who are doing it. It's certainly not as obvious as it is with monkeys, for example. I mean, that is a very, very cross squirrel. But I can't see anything in the base beneath this tree or beneath the wall, so let's go a little bit forward. There's another one calling just off to the left-hand side here. Call me Beth, you say that the squirrels and mongoose are like the maniacs of the bush. I don't think they're maniacs. I'm not sure. I'd love to know what you mean by that, actually. Now, the last time I saw Hosana, he was sort of lurking in amongst these bushes here, trying to catch a duckling or two. Let's go further up this way. Can't see any tracks of anything. We'll just stop here and have another listen and a look. Squirrel calling behind us. I think it might be worth just quickly heading onto the main road and just see if something isn't crossing. If the signal does get a little dodgy here, I'm sorry. It should be okay and rusty though. We should be fine signal wise. I'm about to fall into this dam. Just look in the water here. Can you see the little white-faced whistling ducklings? Look at them there. And they keep putting their heads under the water. And they can actually hide their whole bodies under the water and then just stick their beaks up. So they were all under the water when we came through here. Apparently our signal is very low, so we're going to head across to Jamie now. I'm going to do a thorough search of this area, and hopefully we'll have some good news when I see you next.
Well, I suppose bad is a slight exaggeration. But we didn't realize at the time, and both Herbie and myself stood scratching our head in sheer puzzlement. Tingana's been on Djuma. Tingana, the big male leopard, has been on Djuma. He popped out basically where we popped out, and yet we did not see a single track of him until we hit the main road, the southern boundary of Djuma. And unfortunately, we've been chatting to some of the other guides, and as smoking hot, as Herbie described it, as smoking hot as these tracks are, he's crossed south. And so has Shongile. So we tracked one leopard that we knew we were tracking, and we tracked another leopard that we didn't know we were tracking. Just one of those things. Tingana is a mysterious, mysterious boy. I don't know how we didn't pick up on any tracks, yet he came from Djuma. Utterly bizarre. So I think that the baboons' alarm calling were alarm calling at him. And I think he's continued along south down the Mulwati drainage line. And we just missed him. It's one of those things, one of those frustrating things that happens out here. I suppose frustrating and also wonderful, because sometimes it works out and you bump into the animal, and sometimes it doesn't. It wouldn't be nearly as much fun if it were easy. Now the question is, because apparently he's calling as well, what will Shongile do? Because the last time we tracked Tingana and followed where he went, we found her tracks on top of his tracks. She was following him. I wonder if she's going to go searching for him. I think there's just that instinctive response in a female leopard to respond to a male's calls. There we go. Those are nice and clear, especially now the sun is coming out. Remember how I showed you the size of Shongile's tracks? Tingana's are double her size. His feet are massive. And there we go. Off he goes. Oh dear. Just missed him. Now little Shongile's on her own, and I'm not fully sure of why it is that she followed Tingana that day, or if she's trying to sort of figure out where she stands in this whole situation. Okay, you want to know what Shongile's chances of survival are? I think really high, to be completely honest with you. Even if, and it's a big if, even if Kurula doesn't return to this area, wherever she may be, even if Kurula doesn't return, I think Shongile will be absolutely fine. The fact that she's catching scrub hares, look, she's not eating the best diet in the world, but she's eating, and I think she'll be okay. I think what's also interesting is the fact that she met up with Hosanna, her brother, and then they separated again. I actually expected them, when they got together again, to stay together. I didn't expect them to separate. It's very difficult for us to say. She's a year old. A leopard's chances of survival increase tremendously once they reach that sort of period, because they're quick, their instincts are very well developed, they know what's going on.